Judge Ronald Whitmore's courtroom was one of the grandest and oldest in all of Chicago. His name carried a certain weight, a mix of fear and disdain, especially among minority communities. Whitmore was the kind of judge who had long forgotten the meaning of true justice. Instead, he wielded his authority like a sword, often cutting down those he viewed as lesser, particularly black defendants and attorneys. It was Sabrina Hayes' first day in that courtroom. A newly appointed public defender, Sabrina was known for her intelligence, resilience, and her deep commitment to fighting for the rights of the underrepresented. She stood tall in her modest black suit, clutching her notes, ready to defend a young black man accused of petty theft. As Sabrina began to speak, laying out her client's defense, Judge Whitmore interrupted her mid-sentence. "Well, little lady," he said, dripping with sarcasm, "you think you're playing lawyer today? This court isn't for amateurs." A ripple of laughter spread through the courtroom. Sabrina's cheeks flushed for a second, but she quickly steadied herself. Meeting the judge's icy stare, she replied firmly, "Your Honor, I am here to represent my client, and I intend to do so with the full respect and responsibility that this position demands." Whitmore leaned back in his chair, sneering. "I decide who speaks here," he barked. "And you're out of your depth." Without giving Sabrina a fair chance, he abruptly ruled her client guilty, dismissing all arguments and reducing the entire proceeding to a mockery. Sabrina stood frozen, stunned by the injustice that had just unfolded. Around her, the room buzzed with murmurs, but no one dared challenge Whitmore's decision. That night, Sabrina sat alone in her tiny apartment, replaying the humiliation over and over in her mind. Anger, shame, and heartbreak warred inside her. But amid the turmoil, one thought rose above all others. "I'll be back, and next time it'll be different." The months that followed were anything but easy. Sabrina faced systematic obstacles, being overlooked for promotions, assigned the toughest cases, and often treated like she didn't belong. Yet she refused to quit. She worked tirelessly, winning small victories, building a reputation as a relentless and brilliant defender. Her breakthrough came when she successfully overturned a wrongful conviction, freeing an innocent black man after nearly a decade behind bars. The story made headlines across Chicago. Young defender wins historic case against all odds. Sabrina realized that real revenge wasn't in angry words or defiance. It was in her excellence, in becoming so good that the system could no longer ignore her. And she wasn't done yet. Years passed. Sabrina's name grew in the legal world. She became a voice for the voiceless, a champion for justice. Community leaders respected her. Her victories multiplied. She was not just a lawyer anymore, she was a symbol of hope for those long abandoned by the system. Then came a new initiative in Chicago: judicial reform. The city opened nominations for new judges who would bring fairness and equity to the courts, judges who believed in justice for all, not just for the privileged few. When Sabrina's name was proposed by community leaders, she laughed at first. "Me? A judge?" she said. But the idea took root. Why not? Maybe change had to come from inside the very walls that once humiliated her. She campaigned fiercely, her platform simple: to make courtrooms places of true justice again, for everyone. Local media embraced her story. In interviews, she spoke honestly. "I remember standing in a courtroom being ridiculed because of how I looked. I chose not to let that moment define me. Now, I want to make sure no one else ever has to feel that way." On election day, Sabrina won by a landslide. She wasn't just elected as a judge, she was appointed as a senior administrative judge, tasked with overseeing the hiring, conduct, and performance of other judges. Her first major assignment? Review and hold accountable judges accused of misconduct, bias, or abuse of power. At the top of the list was a familiar name: Judge Ronald Whitmore. Destiny had come full circle. Sabrina was no longer the young woman struggling to be heard. She was now the boss. And Whitmore was about to find out that the rules had changed. When Ronald Whitmore received the summons to appear before the Judicial Conduct Committee, he brushed it off at first. "Another waste of my time," he muttered to his colleagues. "They can't touch me." But when he walked into the hearing room and saw who was presiding over the panel, the color drained from his face. There, sitting at the head of the committee, was Judge Sabrina Hayes. The once arrogant Whitmore was now forced to face the very woman he had publicly humiliated years ago. She looked at him, not with hatred but with a calm, unshakable power that could not be denied. Sabrina opened the file in front of her and spoke in a clear, professional tone. "Judge Whitmore, you stand accused of multiple counts of judicial misconduct, racial bias, and abuse of authority. You will be given the opportunity to respond to these allegations." Whitmore tried to maintain his old arrogance. "This is all a misunderstanding," he said dismissively. "I was just enforcing discipline." Sabrina leaned forward slightly, her voice razor-sharp. "Justice is not enforced through humiliation, intimidation, or prejudice, Mr. Whitmore. Your courtroom was a place of fear, not fairness. Witnesses were called, defendants, attorneys, even former colleagues, all of whom testified to Whitmore's pattern of discrimination and abuse. Documented evidence was overwhelming. Finally, after hours of testimony and deliberation, the committee voted unanimously. Judge Ronald Whitmore was permanently removed from the bench and disbarred from practicing law. As Whitmore walked out of the courtroom, shoulders slumped in defeat, he paused for a moment and looked back at Sabrina. There was no arrogance left, only shame. Sabrina didn't smile or gloat. She simply watched him go, knowing that true victory wasn't in destroying someone, it was in restoring justice for everyone else he had harmed. Outside the courtroom, reporters crowded around her, thrusting microphones forward. Sabrina spoke clearly, her voice echoing in the crisp Chicago air. Today wasn't just about holding one man accountable. It was about holding an entire broken system accountable. Our work isn't finished. Justice must be for everyone, or it isn't justice at all. And with that, Judge Sabrina Hayes stepped into her future, not as a victim of injustice but as its conqueror. Would you also like me to write a cinematic-style trailer text or a powerful quote poster based on this story? It would look amazing if you want to make it even more dramatic. Would you like that?